Take a good look at this face. If you saw this man wearing a fine suit sitting across from you on the bus or waiting in line for coffee, would you even blink? Or would you just see another person heading to work? Most of us wouldn't realize we were looking at a member of a species that supposedly went extinct 40,000 years ago. Raise your hand if you've ever taken a DNA test such as 23andMe or Ancestry DNA. For most people of non-African descent, you may be looking at a reconstruction of an ancestor and long-past relative. While most of us won't think about Neanderthals as more than an animalistic species of the past, they are much more like us than you may think. In popular media, Neanderthal is often used as a shorthand for brutish cavemen. Slow, dim-witted, and animalistic, but science tells a much different story. Neanderthals were a compassionate, intelligent, and highly adapted species. Rather than being a failed branch of our family tree, they are instead a living part of us. Neanderthals exhibited many traits and behaviors that are familiar to modern humans, which is a stark contrast to the modern perception of our ancient relatives. Today, I want to challenge your perception of our ancient relatives by looking at their sophisticated technology, their deep capacity for care, and the genetic legacy they left behind in our own blood. First, let's dismantle the dumb caveman myth. While Neanderthals were built different than us, short, stocky, and powerful to survive the brutal ice age, their minds may have been equally as sharp as ours. Instead of the common stereotype of banging rocks together, they were quite the master craftsmen. In a 2019 study, researcher Anna Ambronoza and her team analyzed how Neanderthals selected materials for their tools. They found that Neanderthals didn't just use whatever was nearby. They understood the specific performance of different types of stone, like quartz and flint, and traveled specifically to find the best materials for the job. They had both an excellent mental map of their environment and a deeper understanding of geology and physics than we often take them for. Beyond their tools, Neanderthals possessed a trait we often think of as uniquely human: profound empathy. We see this most clearly in the way they treated their sick and their dead. Consider the famous fossil known as Shenandoah 1. As Laura Kent details in her 2017 research on Neanderthal healthcare, this individual survived for years to approximately 35 to 45, despite having numerous injuries and conditions that would have made it impossible to hunt or gather. He didn't survive by luck, he survived because his community chose to feed him, protect him, and nurse him. We see the same humanity in their burials. Archaeologists have found organized graves containing pollen, suggesting that Neanderthals may have laid flowers over their dead. They were no longer discarding bodies, like most living species. They were practicing rituals, they felt grief, and they honored the lives of those they lost. Finally, often the biggest surprise to most people, Neanderthals never truly disappeared. Unlike most famous dinosaurs and megafauna, they folded into our own species. If you have ever taken a DNA test like 23andMe and Ancestry DNA, like I mentioned, you probably wouldn't expect to see a percentage of Neanderthal DNA. This DNA can be between 1 and 4% for those of non-African descent. This isn't just a fun fact. As researchers Patrick Riley and his colleagues explained in a 2022 article in Current Biology, this inherited DNA, a process called introgression, still impacts our modern biology. These genes have influenced everything from how our immune systems fight off viruses to how our skin and hair react to different climates. They aren't just the extinct ancestors that cartoons make them out to be, they are a functional part of our biological makeup today. From their tools to their art, to maybe even your own blood, it can be made clear that Neanderthals were much more than cavemen. To wrap up, Neanderthals were far more than the figures we see in cartoons. They were technologically advanced, as seen in Ambronoza's research on their tool making. They were deeply compassionate, as Kent's work on the Shenandoah remains proves. And as Riley and his team have shown, they are still with us, right here in our own DNA. The next time you hear someone use the word Neanderthal as an insult, remember that you are likely looking at a descendant of an ancient, caring, and complex people. These were not brutish, wild animals, but people that live in our very own blood. Thank you.